Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Aethix Fitness, and you're listening to the Aethix Approach podcast, the podcast where we highlight inspirational up-and-coming vegan and plant-based athletes that you've probably never heard of yet, and what they do to absolutely kill it on a plant-based diet. If you haven't already, it would really help out if you subscribed to, liked, commented, and or shared any of the content I'm producing, including this podcast, free articles and training programs on aethixfitness.com, videos on the Aethix Fitness YouTube channel, and more. I truly appreciate all of you guys for the love and support. In today's episode, I speak with Tom Simak, a plant-based endurance athlete and content creator from Queensland, Australia. Actually, this episode with Tom was originally recorded at the end of July 2021, but life got pretty crazy for me shortly after, so I'm only finally releasing the episode now in October 2021. So my apologies to Tom and any listeners out there for the huge delay. Back to the overview. Tom has completed some crazy endurance feats, including the Goggins 4x4x48 challenge, which consists of running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 total hours. Yes, you heard that right, and it's exactly as crazy as it sounds. 48 total miles in 48 hours, allowing basically no time for any decent sleep. Tom and I discussed the physical and mental stress such an extreme challenge had on his body, as well as his other athletic feats, what he eats as a plant-based athlete, the state of the environment and climate change, and how we can contribute to bettering the world. Tom also hosts an awesome podcast called The Plant Paradigm, so I highly recommend checking that out if you haven't already. On a side note, this episode will be concluding season 1 of the Aethix Approach podcast, but don't worry, I'll be back in spring of 2022 with a ton of fresh new content for your listening pleasure. Thanks so much for following along, I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this episode 16. What's up, guys? This is Ryan with Aethix Fitness, and I am here with Tom Simak. Thank you so much for coming on today, Tom. How you doing, man?
I'm doing so good, bro. How are you?
Awesome, dude. I'm doing great too. It's been a nice day here in New York City, very hot. But yeah, just trying to get through the heat this summer. How about you?
Oh, dude, the day's just started. So I've gotten up, done my reading, done my stretching, had my coffee, as you guys like to call it. And I'm
Coffee.
just coffee. Yeah, I'm just ready to go, man. I'm
Yeah.
keen to do my workout for the day, and I'm keen to just, live another 24 hours. I
Yeah.
feel like I started really spiritually, but like just feeling good today.
That's awesome, dude. That's the best way to start the day. It's so funny. I didn't really realize it until after we scheduled this meeting, but this video chat. But I know that you're in Australia, right? So it's 10 a.m. there right now.
Yeah, so I'm in the Gold Coast, Australia.
Okay.
So on the sunny coast, essentially we kind of have kind of like a version of like maybe California, like that coastline. We've
Hmm.
got like Santa Monica Boulevard, like on the coast where people run, and it's a very fitness centric place to live.
Hmm.
Like when I moved here, I'm just like, man, everyone just is jacked as here. Like it's so weird. Like I grew up in Melbourne, which is a very concrete city
Hmm.
kind of New York vibe, but
Hmm.
less people like fitness because it's so cold all the time. So nobody's
Yeah.
out. Everyone's like couch potatoing and Netflixing and stuff.
Yeah.
You move here and it's like sunny most of the year and it's like everyone's just fit. And I'm like, isn't that amazing when you can move to a place where the environment condones this kind of culture of working out? And so everyone's like, wait, you don't work out? And like, that's then the weird part.
Yeah. When did you move over there?
Look, it was only a few months ago
Oh,
that I moved.
recent.
So I'm still, yeah. So I'm still like really on the vibe. Like I'm still on the
Hmm.
high that like everyone loves working out here. What's going on?
Yeah.
Like I've heard with New York, it's so weird because everyone loves working out in New York too. Because you go for a run and it's just like you're just on alert. So you have like really good runs because everything's just happening all the time. You're not distracted by music, and it kind of helps you bring you into the center moment while doing workouts and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah, in New York, it's weird. It's like I guess not I mean, obviously it's so many people here, but not a ton of people are like really, really into like strength training. Like I feel like in California and like Florida in the States here, it's like people are very concerned about like the way they look and like looking really jacked and fit and lean. People in New York, because it is a little colder usually, I feel like people are more about just like staying healthy kind of and maybe care a little bit less about like being jacked and like always having their shirt off or anything. And you don't really see that as much as like California, which I think California is probably a little more like where you're at, right? It's like more like warmer
Yeah,
temperature.
like we're on the beach and it's just like
Beach, yeah.
warm. Like we're technically in like the middle of winter and it's 23 degrees Celsius, which is I don't know what in
Yeah.
Fahrenheit, but it's warm, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's great weather. It's probably does wonders for just like your mood and everything too, right?
For sure. I think seasonal depression is a real thing.
Yeah,
Because and vitamin D deficiency is a real thing too. So I
for
know in a lot of
sure.
cities like, Toronto, Vancouver, New York, even in Melbourne, everyone recommends you got to supplement with vitamin D because
Hmm.
if you're not out midday, 1 p.m. when the sun strikes the
Yeah.
best, you're going to get a deficiency. Like you need to be on it. And I think that's why maybe people are into lifting a bit more in the hotter areas because they have to
Mm.
be out in tank tops and stuff. So they kind of
Yeah.
have that social pariah nipping at them saying you got to look good for your insecurities and stuff like that, whereas with New
Yeah.
York it's like, no, I'm good, like I can just be healthy and like wear my coat so I don't need to show off
Yeah.
my body.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is that how it is in Melbourne too? You said where you came from?
I have no look, not a lot of people are into, like, I don't know if it's my circle that's changed, but I don't
Hmm.
know, like Melbourne's very diverse. So
Hmm.
there's like a big running crowd, there's cycling, there's rock climbing, there's a lot of
Hmm.
different things, but I would say it's not nearly as fitness centric. Like I would
Hmm.
definitely refer it to like kind of like, not that we have like beach workout zones like Muscle Beach or anything like that, but there's a lot of outdoor. I think the council's really funded outdoor paths. The bike, there's like a 50 kilometer, which is like a 20, 30 mile bike trail along the beach. Like it's
Hmm.
just, it's where the investment has gone. And I think that's a great service to public health when,
Hmm.
because it's hard to exercise. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
man, to wake
Yeah.
up and to commit every single day to not only go to the gym and just lift a weight every now and again, and then you're on Instagram scrolling for the rest of it. It's like to actually go out. It's a hurdle, dude.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a barrier to entry there that
Uh-huh.
is difficulty. And if in the public eye and the governments can invest more to kind of remove that barrier
Hmm.
to being healthy, like whether that's subsidizing gym memberships, whether that's making running trails and bike trails and hikes more accessible, that
Hmm.
will, I guess, be a good initiative and good, I guess, promotion so people can live a healthier life. And so then your medical bills lower. And so the
Yeah.
government has less of a tax there. And I think it's a beautiful circle of life when you
Hmm.
live in a place where it's socially norm to be healthy because it's, firstly, you're the average of 5, but also you want to be the best version of yourself and you want to
Hmm.
have the least barriers as possible to get there, you know?
Yeah, those are great points, man. Definitely. I think people, I wish more people thought like that because it would save so much money on health insurance too. Like
Dude.
just from like zooming out, like a macro perspective, it would be great for the whole entire, the country, each country, and like the world in general. Just, I wish more people thought like that.
It starts with us, bro.
It
It
does.
starts
It
with these
does.
powerful conversations. It starts with initiatives. Because at the end of the day, I think governments are pretty busy doing their own things.
Hmm.
And a lot of the time, the people and the, I guess, parties that can instill change are the non-government organizations, the
Hmm.
NGOs, the charities, maybe the ethical companies like, for example, toilet paper. We've got like Who Gives a Crap is a brand. I think it's in the US as well.
Great,
And
great.
essentially, they've got different, like they've got bamboo fiber and recycled toilet paper. And
Hmm.
every time you buy a roll, I think they build a toilet in sub-Saharan Africa to reduce the spread of disease. And it's like
Oh, wow.
you just have to. Change is simple if you know how to get there, and it starts with facilitating these conversations, exchanging ideas on how we can become the healthiest and, I guess, be a society in the best position to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So when you got, what drew you to, so you do mostly endurance training, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were more drawn to that in terms of like, cardiovascular health and stuff, or did you just enjoy it more? Just out of curiosity.
Look, we all go through phases, man. Like, when you're growing up and you think like you're 16, 17, I would say that most people, and I don't have the stat for this, I'm just talking on subjective
Sure.
evidence and how my
Sure.
life
Sure.
is. But I think you're drawn to weights because, I mean, as a male, you want to attract a female and you
Mhm.
need a good body and you want to look good for yourself because you've also got I guess, the looming shadow of social media telling you that you need to look a certain way. So I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
weightlifting is huge when you're younger. And it was for me too. Like I went through maybe 3 years of twice a day weightlifting, plyometric. I was huge into basketball. I almost went to the US to play for college. So that was a huge part of my life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I kind of went to calisthenics because I'm like, I feel like with bodybuilding, and I get it because I used to be a lot bigger than I am now, but
Yeah.
I fell into the trap of losing a lot of my range of motion
Uh-huh.
because, you go when you stretch, you're like, yeah, I love the pain, but then it's not stretch. So you train and then you forget to stretch. And then a lot of that range of motion, I think that really is a huge part of life and it impedes your health a lot if you don't stretch and you don't train properly. Because if you're
Hmm.
walking around like gorilla, like that's not sustainable. That's
Yeah.
not good for
Yeah.
you. And I think that's a huge trap that people fall into. So I went into calisthenics to try to balance that out. So
Okay.
calisthenics, for those who don't know, is just a pure body weight training. So push-ups, pull-ups, muscle ups, dips, anything body weight. And it's a different physique. It's very different.
Hmm.
And then after then, I've never loved running. And then I read David Goggins Can't Hurt Me. And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but he just loves pain. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
He's
kind of
that
I
guy.
kind of like
So I don't know much about him, but from what I do know, I'm like, this guy is crazy.
dude. The guy like finished the buds training, which is the hardest Navy training in the world, with a broken knee. Like he's
Are you
just
serious? That's
he
insane. How do you
he
do
did it.
that?
He pushed through the pain. Look, I
Holy.
would put downright psychotic. Like for anyone who hasn't read his book, I think it's powerful. Like if you're going
What's
to
his book?
invest, Can't Hurt Me.
Oh, Can't Hurt Me is the book. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if anyone were to read a book this year, I'd say it's that one. I think it's
Really?
incredibly, incredibly powerful.
I'm gonna write that
And
down right now because I am looking
do
for a
it.
new book to read. That sounds awesome.
Let me know how you go, Ryan. I'm keen to, because you're going to pick it up because he's just crazy. He just pushes through pain.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing in life, in fitness, I think whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's cardio, whether it's calisthenics, whatever the modality is, if you read his book, and I'm not affiliated with it, but I can almost guarantee that you're going to level up in whatever way that could be. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I've never run, I've never fallen, I've never kind of
Hmm.
like that. And I just started running and I'm just like, I really love this pain. Really love being out here and it's very different. It's very
Hmm.
strange being out there because you're not, in the gym, you're training for maybe half an hour, maybe an hour,
Hmm.
like solid. But then when you start training for running, it's like, oh man, I'm out here for 2 hours running. I'm out here for 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours.
Hmm.
And so you eventually build over time and it's a very different pain
Hmm.
and you have to learn different strategies. So first you have to spend time with yourself for that long without
Hmm.
anyone else. No, like you don't have to be chasing something, like you have to be there with your thoughts.
Hmm.
And I think when you run, you'll come up with the best business ideas. You come up with the best, who do we have to call? Oh man, I miss this guy so much, I'm going to call him. And because you're just by yourself for so long, like you could have music coming in, you could have podcasts coming in, but your thoughts will overpower all of that. And I think
Mm.
you'll find that you'll think a lot of, and I'm guessing based on the context of your podcast, a lot of people don't maybe do so much cardio because it's all like bodybuilders and stuff. So I'm just bringing it back to basics to where your
No, no,
mind
no.
kind of goes in the
I am
running.
so interested in hearing about this because I never hear this perspective. So like this is great to me. I didn't know, I never really thought of, I guess, running for that long or even doing any sort of cardio for that long as being very meditative. So that's very interesting to hear.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very flow and zen. And I think what it also teaches you
Hmm.
with strength training, I feel that with running, it's a lot easier to get an injury than strength training.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you have to adapt the way that you move and everything because you have to stretch more. You
Hmm.
have to really take care of your TFL and your ITB. your ITB especially, which is on the side of your quad, like that's going to get really inflamed if you don't stretch, and you're going to find it hard to walk.
Really?
You need to make sure that you get your ankle mobility. Like you need to have a stretching routine if you're into running.
Mm-hmm.
If
Okay.
you're running 20 minutes a day, maybe 15 minutes a day, maybe you don't need one.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to run 10 kilometers, maybe even have it. Sorry, I'll talk mileage for a bit. If you want to have a weekly mileage of maybe 20, you
Uh-huh.
need to be stretching. Because when I started running, I wasn't stretching. I was getting up at 5 a.m., going for maybe a 3-4 mile run, coming
Mm-hmm.
back, and then going about my day. And that was just my daily routine.
Okay.
And
So
I
you're
fell.
saying quad injuries or like I don't know the exact term you're using, but that's very common for running.
Oh, it's very, especially knee
Knee.
and
Okay.
ITB.
Oh,
ITB, which
okay.
is like the outer of your thigh,
It's like
really.
the tendon running up there.
Yeah, it gets really inflamed if
Okay.
you run with bad form, especially with your knee, because as you're running, it's very common to heel strike.
Mm-hmm.
And biomechanically, when you heel strike, the issue is a lot of the pressure actually falls onto your knee, which is
Okay.
why in any time they've done a study or a review, and you can look at the literature, and I read the literature all the time. When we're looking at the totality of runners, whether you're professional or amateur or a hobbyist,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere between 50 and 80% of runners will get a knee injury in 6 months of training.
Okay.
So
Wow.
if you look at a scope or within the year, it goes up to 80%.
Wow. It's that
20%
common.
of people are avoiding an injury. That's stupid. A
That's
thousand runners,
insane.
800 people are hobbling around like with an injury.
Yeah. Why do you think why do you think the injury rate is so high? People just don't know how to stretch properly for it?
People get really excited, so they
Yeah.
go way too hard too quickly. It's
Do you
like
think
going
it's
to the gym and trying to.
because, sorry, I don't mean to speak over you, but do you think it's because people think that running is so accessible? Like there's not much of a learning curve right off the bat, and they start getting better and can keep pushing it and pushing it without
Ryan, I
learning?
think you're bang on. I think you hit the nail
Okay.
on the head because inherently you think when you're a child, you learn to walk by yourself. It's natural. It's natural to
Yeah.
walk. And so we think that running is natural.
Mhm.
And really it's to learn it properly, it's not. And
Okay.
if we look at studies where they've taken, uh, I think it was 100 kids, and they actually took them out of general school running districts and coaching situations to a
Hmm.
privatized um, school where they actually teach you how to run properly. And you
Hmm.
follow these 100 kids, none of them got an injury. And this is a 10-year follow-up, no injuries. So when we're looking at running form and biomechanics, I think we just think we know it and we
Uh-huh.
don't. We think we know how to swim,
Yeah.
but the problem with running is it's so much impact. It's a
Hmm.
lot. If you weigh 160 pounds and you're bouncing around on your knee, the knee and the patella is not designed to take that much stress at
Hmm.
all.
Yeah.
And so biomechanically, if we're looking at the physics of it, like I was mentioning before, if you heel strike, a lot of it's going to fall on your patella, which is
Okay.
not what you want, because that's when you're going to get really bad knee pain. And that's also connected to your ITB, which is going to inflame.
Okay.
That's a big problem. And also your ankle might flare up too. So where I think the opportunity lies for runners is kind of focusing on the midfoot and forefoot
Hmm.
strike. So if we look at like sprinters, for example,
Hmm.
the way that they're running, sprinters generally have less injury
Hmm.
statistically because they're forefoot and midfoot. So they're leaning
Yeah, they're
forward.
staying on their
So they're
toes,
using
right?
correct. So they're using gravity.
Ah.
So
Okay.
what happens biomechanically when you do that is the stress of your weight actually goes to your soleus,
Hmm.
which is connected to your gastrocnemius, your calf
Hmm.
muscle, and then it also goes to your glute.
Hmm.
So you've got this powerhouse of a muscle, the glute, which generally as a society is actually inactive a lot of the time because we're sitting on our butts all the
Yeah, I've heard
time.
that before.
I just want to stand up right now and just do this podcast as standing up. But
Yeah.
every day, that's why part of my stretching routine is doing glute bridges, even single leg glute
Mm.
bridges every morning, just 5 to 10 reps. It will activate your glute before your run.
Yeah.
Necessary.
Yeah, a lot of people have that problem with just like weak glutes and stuff just from sitting all day. It's very, very common.
Oh, absolutely. And I think even with even if you're weightlifting, like this, I wonder if you
Oh
have a
yeah.
regimen where you
Yeah.
activate certain muscles, like if it's before because I've got a lordotic spine, usually
Mhm.
before I work out, if I do a weight session, I'll
Mhm.
still do glute bridges or I'll do like sumo squats to make sure
Yeah.
that activation is there,
Yeah.
warm up the muscle, focusing on form,
Mhm.
making sure that your range of motion is there. And I found that the focusing on form in the weight room actually is a very different experience to focusing on reps or 1 RMs.
Mhm.
Have you ever tried focusing on different aspects and modalities of weightlifting?
That's actually very interesting you'd say that, because I had a lower back injury before from actually deadlifting with it. My form wasn't absolutely terrible. It was actually pretty good, but I just had like a lower back pop, like a little disc
Oh no.
injury. And I rehabbed that for about a year. And you know what
Wow.
actually helped was engaging my glutes more. So I had to go through a bunch of different methods for trying to figure out what the problem was, and just engaging my glutes more for when I was deadlifting and stuff. That really helped to protect my lower back, and like using more quads and everything. So I definitely had the problem where I would lift a lot more with my lower back than what I probably should have, even though it should have been generally safe for a lot of people's build. But yeah, for me, like I wasn't using my glutes enough. I wasn't used to it. So I started trying to cue my glutes more, and like doing a bunch of activation techniques and stuff for that, and like really trying to cue just like your glutes and like a lift and stuff. And that protected my lower back. And ever since I haven't had problems.
That's awesome, dude. I'm so glad to hear, because sometimes it's just as simple as queuing, which
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only talking from my experience. I'm guessing you're quite similar. It might only take a minute to 5 minutes to really
Yeah.
get a proper cue and a warm up. And in the long run, like if you're in the weight room, and I talk about this a lot of running because again, we're prone to injuries.
Hmm.
If you love being in that weight room and you love maybe the community, like there is a community behind all
For
of this,
sure.
whether it's running or weightlifting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be running until I'm 35 or 40 and then just be like, oh, I used to run, but then my knee pain and yada, yada, yada. Like I want to run when I'm
Exactly.
100 years old, bro.
Exactly.
And I think doing these 5-10 minute stretches, like
Hmm.
really focusing on form, doing activation, the cues, foam rolling, maybe getting a massage gun, like
Hmm.
all these different things, it comes to sustainability.
Hmm.
And, you know,
Yeah.
sustainability is a term that is usually used for the environment, but I think you can use it to anything.
Hmm.
Like you want to make your body sustainable, the exercises you do sustainable, because if you're passionate about working out and I tell you, hey, you can either do exactly what you're doing and you're going to
Hmm.
be a gun for 5 years, or I'm just going to tweak a little thing here, add a few stretches, and you can do this for 50 years, maybe more.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, what would you take?
Yeah, and more people need to think like that in terms of just protecting themselves for the future. Because like I'm thinking from my perspective, because I know of so many people who are into lifting, who they, especially power lifters, they would go and destroy themselves, basically just kind of being careless and not thinking about the longevity of it. And then like, they can't even lift it like in their late 20s, and it's just like, come on, like you're gonna just like ruin it all like in your early 20s, when you couldn't even be at your full potential necessarily. Like if you were thinking about
Very
longevity
true.
and protecting yourself, you can hit your peak with that kind of stuff in your mid 30s, late 30s, even later for sure. So that's just a shame. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking so much about the longevity of it, because yeah, like you said, we want to do this stuff when we're like 60s, 70s, 80s.
We want to be that ripped. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love going into the gym and seeing like a ripped 50-year-old. I'm just like, what is that? Like
Nothing,
I
yeah,
fully respect that.
nothing gets me more inspired than that, man. It's so fucking cool. I love it. So I'm curious about what is your personal techniques for kind of like, you know, are you mostly running right now, or is that kind of what you're doing? Like what is your kind of your prehab, I guess, techniques for staying safe?
Yes. So my for staying safe, I'm currently mostly running.
Okay.
I usually have a rule of thumb that I work out about an hour a day,
Okay.
usually. So I'll usually do about 30 minutes on an indoor bike.
Hmm.
And that's honestly just so I'm off my ass, because I just, we wake up every day, we check our phone and stuff like that. And I don't check my phone within the first 30 minutes to an hour of a day.
Hmm.
But if I've got to do like social media stuff, like respond to messages, check emails, I'll go down to the indoor bike. Or if you have, maybe I could just do squats for like 30 minutes, but I'll just go on the indoor bike for 30 minutes and just reply to messages and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Because that firstly burns 300 calories, great start to my day, good
Hmm.
glute activation. So that's usually part of my everyday training.
Yeah.
At the moment, my training is a bit different because I'm focusing a little bit more on stretching because I potentially am thinking about taking on a world record for squats.
Oh, wow.
For the most amount of squats done in 24 hours. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. What's the
Because
number?
25,000.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
25,000 body weight squats.
Yeah. So
That is mind blowing. Oh my
at the
God.
moment, last week I did 3,000 just to see how it felt.
Uh-huh.
I did 1,000 and that was pretty easy. I did 2,000 and that was like okay. Like I didn't find too much stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then last week when I did 3,000, I felt it was pretty easy as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to about 2,900, I started feeling like no pain, a lot of pain on like my legs and stuff.
Yeah.
The only problem with it is the pins and the needles in the foot, like your feet die a little bit. So, but I did it in 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So, it's not the worst amount. But at that pace, I could beat the world record by almost 4,000 squats. So I'm thinking about it. So at the moment, I'm just focusing on stretching, any form of endurance training. So with endurance, it's a different world because we try to focus a lot more on our heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So with different, I'm not sure if you've heard of like zone training.
Not really.
So you've got different zones of your heart rate. So zone 1
Oh,
being like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
resting.
Okay.
Yeah. Zone 2 is generally from memory about 60-70% of your max heart rate. So the more you train on zone 2, the more endurance you'll build up and aerobic capabilities. So when we're talking about running, this is a huge trap that people fall into. People just think I'm
I'm
going to go
sorry.
for,
I'm sorry, Tom. Did you say what was the heart rate for zone 2? I just missed
I think
that.
it was about 70% of your max heart
70.
rate.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just double check. Yeah. So I just double check. Zone 2 is 60 to 70% of heart
Gotcha.
rate max.
Okay, that's good to
So
know.
when we're saying that kind of stuff, the reason people can run a long time is because the trap that people fall into, and it's funny because I've fallen into it myself. So I see it and I laugh, but I'm like, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
People go for a 5K run or 3 mile or whatever it is, and they just sprint and they're like, I'm done, and you're sweating. But all of a sudden, like their times are good, but they're not getting better. Like they can't run further. And because what you do is you have to force yourself to
Mm-hmm.
slow down, even if you have to walk part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you run 3 miles and you can run it in 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you have to sometimes maybe even force yourself to run it in 40 minutes.
Okay.
So it's that concept of 1 step back, 2 steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you do is when you slowly build up your mileage on zone 2, your heart adapts
Mm-hmm.
and you can stay at, like, my zone 2 is like about 140, 150 beats per minute, my heart.
Okay.
So what I want to make sure is that my body burns the least amount of calories for the long time. That's the goal of endurance.
To be more
So a lot of,
efficient.
absolutely. So my
Okay.
goal is just to train sometimes as long as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me today, maybe I'm thinking about going for like a 40-kilometer bike ride. So that might take
Mm-hmm.
me maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's the pain is that it takes so much longer than weight training.
Yeah.
That's the big
Yeah.
downfall. Like you weight training, you can pump in, like get a nice high heart rate because you just really want to break down the muscle fibers, get big, get good, rounded, sculpted muscles. But with endurance, it's all about your heart health.
Mm-hmm.
And your cardiovascular capability. So when it comes to trying to train for these kind of events, if I don't know, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the marathon and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
training to like that kind of capability, takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
If you are at a couch right now and can't run a mile and you want to run a marathon, it's going to take you about 8 months, eight
Mm-hmm.
months to a year to train to that kind of level.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and to be clear, and this is something I've had to find out over a lot of pain, if you think doing a marathon is healthy, I would probably disagree with you.
That's what I've heard
Don't
also.
I don't think it's very healthy. When I was growing up, I'm like, people who run a marathon, they're a spitting image of health. This is the person I want
Uh-huh.
to be, and that's what I kind of strived for. And then when I ran it, I'm like, yeah, look, I don't know, my ankle's inflamed. I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I can't really walk straight. I was stiff for about 4 days. And for those who don't know, a marathon is 20, I think in mileage, 26 miles or 27 miles.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And, that's not health. And so I think when it comes to cardio, which is a lot of what we're talking about, and if you want to train, I think, and especially for your listeners, which I'm guessing is weightlifting, I think there's an opportunity to, I mean, do you incorporate cardio into your regime?
Yeah, actually, I usually do like an hour, either once or twice a week for bike riding, and then lately I've been trying to beat my mile record. So I've been going to the track, just running, twice a week or something. And then besides that, sometimes just go on like morning walks, which if you want to call cardio, I just kind of do it just to move a little bit more, and then I do like some jump roping here and there.
I love it. I think I would almost call walking cardio.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think I generally strive for like I don't know, a rushed walk.
yeah,
That's what I would call cardio. But
yeah.
I think you're bang on. Like I think your aesthetic with your body is going to be completely different now that you've added in cardio. It's
Mhm.
weird
Yeah.
how, like, being so into bodybuilding. How do you find, like, do you find your mentality while doing the cardio different? Like, how do you feel afterwards? Is it different pain?
That's funny, man. A lot, yeah, like you said, a lot of lifters just like don't do cardio, and
They're scared.
yeah, maybe they are. Yeah, it's a different kind of suck. Honestly, it can really, really suck for some people. It's very different than like the burn you feel of like lifting, though. But it definitely has its own level of sucking. But yeah, I forced myself to do it. I kind of, it grew on me. I've been doing cardio regularly for about like I don't know, about a year, I'd say, maybe a couple years, like very regularly. Before that, I was kind of like one of those bros who was just like, like I don't really care about doing cardio that much. But like I'm getting older now, and I want to like keep my heart healthy, so I've been doing at least like two to 4 days per week of cardio.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that hard. Like if we touch back, I love that you're doing that, and full props to you, because a lot of people get sucked into the hole, and bodybuilders
Yeah,
get scared of losing a lot of muscle
yeah, which
because of
isn't
adding a bit of,
true. Yeah,
it's
which
not
isn't
true.
true either.
It's
Um,
not what the paper, it's not what the literature shows. It's not what the
yeah,
science says.
yeah.
It's a bit of bro science. I'm sure if you went from doing, if you just straight up went to like 20 hours a week of cardio, you might lose some muscle if you're not
Yeah,
eating adequately. But if
yeah,
you're
that
just
makes
adding
sense.
in a few hours a week, like,
Yeah.
what can go wrong?
Yeah, definitely. And I think more people should do it because like I'm speaking of the perspective of people who are into lifting and not doing cardio. I think more people should do it just to keep their heart healthy, just to, and also just to feel better.
Oh, for sure. Like, and it's what it is. Like, it's sustainability. I think
Yeah.
when it comes, if you want to lift for longer, cardio is just it's gonna prolong your lifting ability. Just,
Yeah.
and I'm not
Yeah.
saying train for a marathon. Like, again,
Hmm.
probably not healthy.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think the opportunity to add 30 minutes to 2 hours a week of,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying go suck, like go really into the pain cave.
Yeah.
Like when we're looking at zone 2 training, maybe zone 3, so like 80, 70 to maybe 75, 80% of your max heart rate,
Hmm.
you know, that is really going to prolong your health. You're going to have more energy because it's going to really, it's sculpting your muscles in a different way.
Hmm.
And I think it's a really good opportunity for sustainability
Yeah.
for specifically weightlifters, which is awesome. And I love that you incorporate that.
Yeah, I even say like, so anyone who I'm like friends with who once hear my advice or whatever, I always say like in the very least, if your main goal is like lifting more weights, building muscle, whatever, if you improve your work capacity through cardio, meaning like you can do more reps in a set or whatever without like burning out, gassing out from not being able to get enough oxygen in, that's going to help like crazy. So like doing a little bit of cardio, improving your work capacity, your heart health and everything, that's going to apply to your lifting later because you can just get more reps in a set or something without, totally burning out.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. You could work out for longer. Imagine
Yeah.
that. Imagine the gains you can get from the increased ability of fitness because you can get more reps. What now my 8 reps, I can do 10 reps of, and
Exactly.
incremental changes over
Hmm.
the course of a week, a month, or a year add up to a lot. Like that is a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everything just kind of compounds on top of each itself.
For sure. I think a study that came out, I think it was early this year, really kind of brought that home for me. And it
Hmm.
actually looked at um people who eat or meal prep, like eat all their meals from home compared to people who eat out the restaurant. I think it
Yeah.
was one dinner a week
Uh-huh.
no, one dinner a day, sorry, that they ate out at a restaurant. And what they actually found was over the course of the week, they consumed 400 to 500 extra calories on average. And now looking at the course of a year, that ended up being equivalent to 177 Mars bars.
Oh my
And
God.
it's a lot. It's like,
That really adds up.
oh man, I
Yeah.
think it was like 3 or 4 kilos of butter. Like it was just a lot of calories. And
Where
I
was that
think
study
that
conducted?
I have no, I'll message it to you and so you can include in the show notes for people to have a look at
Yeah, I was going to say, I
because
mean, if that was conducted in like the United States or something, it would explain a whole lot of things here.
you guys get a lot of funding around there for studies like that. So I 100% would,
Yeah.
it
Well,
was either
obesity.
Australia or US. Obesity is so bad.
Yeah, it's a bad problem here. So it makes sense why there'd be so much funding.
Yeah, well, it's a bad problem really everywhere. I know the
Yeah.
US is
Yeah.
really leading the way, but Australia, I think with Australians, I think sometimes we think, oh no, we're not like them. But when we look at the math, we get 43% of our calories from ultra processed foods, and
Wow.
but the US gets 60% or 62% on average of your total calories from processed food,
Yeah.
and one in five people in the UK get 80% of their calories from processed food. So
1 in 5. Wow.
one in five, it's nothing, I don't know if there's a country out there where you can be really proud of unless you're in like, Africa, where they have the
Mhm.
lowest rate of heart disease because they're consuming over 30 grams of fiber a day and they don't have the westernization of diets there.
You know what's funny? You said over 30 grams of fiber a day, right? For someone like me and you who's on a plant-based diet, 30 grams of fiber seems like literally nothing, doesn't
It's nothing. But the average American and the average Australian gets 17 grams. The average American gets 15 grams a
Yeah,
day.
and that blows my mind because I think an average day for me is like it's an upwards of 125 grams of fiber sometimes, which
Holy guacamole. That's a lot of fiber. I haven't counted I haven't got onto Chronometer or anything and counted my fiber in a while, but
yeah.
I count my plants. So how many
Hmm.
different unique plants a week I get, and I get well over 50 different plants a week. So
Oh wow,
usually
okay.
when I start my day, my first day of the week, I'll hit like 30 plants and then I
Mm.
slowly repeat them. But I think a good rule of thumb is if you're getting 50 different plants a week,
Hmm.
you're good. Like the minimum recommended is 25
Yeah.
based on RDA, but I would say 30 or more, like we're sweet. If you're hitting 100, like that takes time to build up, but good on you, bro. That's amazing.
That's so you said different types of plants, right?
Yep.
Oh wow, I never thought about it that way. I usually just count like how many servings of fruits and vegetables I get per day. But I'm kind
Mm.
of guilty of eating a lot of the same fruits and vegetables. And like there's definitely something to be said about that kind of variety. So if you do count how many plants you're eating per week, that definitely makes sense of like why that's a good idea because you're eating such a variety of vitamins and minerals there.
Yeah. So what you want and why that's really important is every plant. So
Hmm.
there's 300,000 edible plants, and human society usually relies on like seven for a majority of our calories. And
Yeah.
so why we want a majority or a vast, why eating the rainbow is amazing
Hmm.
is because certain foods love certain foods. So everyone's heard the whole always have a citrus in with an iron based food. So if
Hmm.
you have kale or spinach, always make sure you douse it with some sort of lemon or lime because it increases iron absorption.
Hmm.
And every plant has its own unique, what's called a polyphenol.
Hmm.
And these polyphenols create different compounds in your body that are linked to slowing down the process of aging, a healthy gut bacteria, reverses conditions, and really denies the development of things like gastrointestinal problems. So
Hmm.
leaky gut is a big problem in people that lack fiber, because what happens when you consume foods is a lot of it gets stuck in, I believe, the upper colon, and what really goes down into your gut and gets processed is the fiber. So your gut need to eat this fiber and they create beautiful compounds. And polyphenols is what we want a vast variety of,
Hmm.
because every polyphenol is going to be good for, like, not to take a really reductionist mindset, but this polyphenol is great for energy. This one's great to reverse, heart disease, or not reverse heart disease, but like diabetes or whatever it is.
Sure.
And so we want a vast majority of that because, when we look at a lot of different, let's say tribes in Africa and stuff where they've got a very low, I think it's like 2% in certain tribes rate of cardiovascular disease.
Mm-hmm.
They're eating upwards of 60 plants a week when you're looking at beans, nuts, legumes, fruits,
Mm-hmm.
vegetables, tubers. And so we want to adopt and learn from these populations that have the least amount of disease. And when they're saying eat lots of fiber and eat a vast majority of like a large variety of plants, eat the rainbow, we're like, yeah, let's do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's funny because I'm sure your average American here probably it's like a grand total of maybe 10. It's like what potatoes probably makes up like most of that.
Well, what's in a burger? Tomato, lettuce. Yeah, cucumber maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it's slowly on the rise. I think what I've been talking about recently, which is awesome about health. I mean, I don't know how long you've been really health conscious for, but I found maybe even 10 years ago or 8 years ago, the conversation was, I'm trying to eat, or at least in my circles, I'm trying to eat more meat to stay healthy and to get more protein. But now people, I think, are starting to realize I'm trying to eat more veggies now. Like I want to really up my fruit intake, and people are not scared of that anymore.
Yeah. So what is your diet kind of consist of on a day-to-day basis anymore?
I'm like 80 probably to 90% whole foods.
Okay.
So I'll generally stay away from anything processed. Like I'll have it because I'm not trying to reverse any kind of condition. I'm not trying to like I'm pretty healthy, I think. So I'm pretty lenient, but I'll have a lot of fruit and veg. Like when we come back from the market, we go to the farmer's market, my partner and I, we come back with bags of just fruit and veg. And we have that classical Tumblr photo with just the fridge full of veggies. And I think that's really important. And it's something that I've worked towards. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I first started eating plants, like, man, I was eating the same 3 dishes again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I think slowly, and what's really cool, and there's science to show this, your taste buds change.
Yeah.
And not only that, within a week, actually starting from 48 hours up to a week, your complete microbiota will change. And so you'll start to crave different foods. So for me, it's whole foods. So things like bananas, pear, like I just love fruits. That is like my ultimate snack. And every now and again, I'm a sucker for protein bars because the fat and the sugar and the salt draws me in.
Yeah, of course.
Of course I have my weaknesses, but for me, like my ideal day, just to get a bit more specific, I'll usually start if I have breakfast. Sometimes I skip it, but if I have breakfast, it'll be a smoothie bowl.
Yeah.
So that smoothie bowl will have at least 20 different plants.
Oh wow, what are you putting there?
So the actual base itself is acai. It'll have banana. It'll have actually freeze sprouts. Okay. So not that I grow sprouts, but sprouts have a lot more nutrition than their counterpart, I guess, vegetables. So like broccoli sprouts will have about 10,000 times the vitamin mineral density as broccolis themselves.
Oh,
so
wow,
sprouts have a really potent form of nutrition. So
and they're pretty, the flavor profile is pretty mellow, right? Like it's not overpowering.
Some like alfalfa, I found that it's quite like minty and bitter. Oh. So like I add alfalfa sprouts onto like salads and things like that.
Okay.
But I get like a crunchy sprout combo or call something like that in the shops, and you can get different bean sprouts and alfalfa and all of that. The best one's broccoli sprouts if you were to add a sprout to your diet, in my opinion. They're all great, but broccoli sprouts really give a good bang for buck.
Okay.
So I'll usually add some frozen one of those. I'll add maybe some beetroot, mango. I usually have 5 fruits and they kind of cycle through. I'll always have acai and banana though, because I think that flavor is just great.
Yeah.
So in the base with the sprouts, there'll be about 8 vegetables or 8 fruits, sorry. And then I'll put in a bit of soy milk or oat milk. I generally like oat milk just because the environmental impact is slightly better than soy milk. And it's only 10% oats and majority water, but it still gives that creamy texture. So not to consume too many, I guess, not that I'm worried about calories, but it's just the environmental impact and the calories. It's a bang for buck.
Isn't soy milk pretty, how to say it? It's not very bad for the environment though, right?
No, it's great. It's so
I thought
good.
almond was like out of the whole plant-based milk, that's like the one that's like the uses the most water or something. Is
Yeah,
that
I think
true?
it's macadamia. I think it's
Okay,
macadamia.
macadamia.
Yeah,
That's pretty
but
rare here.
almonds are up there. Yeah, we
Mm,
don't have a lot of macadamia milk. Like I've tried it and I think it's very good, especially in
yeah.
coffees if you like to make lattes.
Oh, I
So I
love
definitely
coffee.
considered it. Yeah, I'll definitely consider it as a treat. I
Yeah.
think if you're looking for the eco option, I would go soy or oat. In my research,
Gotcha.
oat is
Okay.
slightly better, but I honestly just like the taste. So I put
Yeah.
the eco at like very, very small sum game, but
Okay.
soy, phenomenal. Both, everything crushes dairy. So we're good.
Yeah. I usually just drink soy milk because yeah, I just love the texture. I've been
Oh,
drinking
for
it since I
sure.
went vegan years ago at this point.
I love soy, and we've got some amazing phytoestrogens in there that I'll link to weight loss, um, regulating your hormone and appetite. So we've got a lot of really good compounds in soy that we like different isoflavones and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But to continue
People
with the
like to
smoothie bowl,
demonize phytoestrogens a lot, and that's a
yeah.
whole subject in itself.
Oh man, we can dive into it, but essentially, it's just the confusing nature of the name estrogen in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Estrogen is just it's a sex hormone that we need in our body to function. We don't want too much or we don't want too little.
Hmm.
I think where it comes to become demonized is that story of soy causes man boobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just before we move on, that was based on an anecdotal, so one person study story of this guy who was actually consuming 3 liters, which is 3 liters is about what 5 pound of soy milk a day,
Yeah.
and actually developed uh, soy man boobs a little bit. But if you're consuming 3 liters of
Yeah.
any kind of milk a day, I'd probably say just chill a little bit. Um, like maybe dip it down to 1.5, maybe
Yeah.
one. Like, but I wouldn't be. I'd say 3. Even if you have dairy milk, whatever milk it is,
Hmm.
3 liters is just too much.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like an n equals one study is not going to prove anything, but also the guy probably was a high equal producer, which is like a type of they basically convert phytoestrogen into like a more active form in the body, is how I understand it at least. And yeah, I mean, that's just it's pretty rare, I would say. So for your average person consuming like multiple servings of soy a day, literally no problem at all. And if anything, very good for you.
Oh, absolutely. If we look at these counts of Southeast Asia, which actually produce and consume the most amount of soy, I think at one stage it was about 50% of their diet from soy.
Yeah.
The lowest, they have no counts of these man boobs or these
Yeah.
so-called testosterone, um, I guess, differences. And when we're studying vegans in general, I was actually just going through a bunch of studies yesterday because I've got a post going up, I think tomorrow or something, calling out Andrew Huberman. Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with his show, but he's a neuroscientist
Okay.
at Stanford, and he kind of had a podcast episode where he said he consumed butter,
Hmm.
so because it has cholesterol, and he wanted that cholesterol to
Mm.
convert into testosterone and estrogen, and he's smart in a lot of ways, but
Uh-huh.
nutrition maybe isn't his forte. And so when we're looking at populations of vegans, because a lot of people douse veganism as this testosterone lowering symptomatic thing or
Yeah.
diet.
Yeah.
When we look at populations specifically in the US, there's actually a study by Cambridge looking at 196 males. So we're male, so I'm going to talk about a male study here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they compared 196 vegans, and they found that not only did we have the same amount of testosterone and estrogen as the meat eating counterparts, but we actually had 9% less
Yeah.
insulin like growth factor 1.
Hmm.
And IGF-1 is linked to a variety of diseases. We really don't want it in our bodies. It's
Yeah.
linked to different types of tumors and cancers. It's linked to cardiovascular disease. We just don't want it. Essentially, it grows malignant cells, in my understanding. So we don't want
Hmm.
IGF-1 in our body. And if we can, and we need to ditch that myth that vegans have less testosterone and estrogen, because we don't.
Yeah, I think I'm actually familiar with that study too. And there's also there's a meta-analysis on soy consumption in men. And it was a big study showing no difference in men who consumed multiple servings of soy per day on testosterone levels. So that's a very popular study. Anyone can find that online if they're interested. So to sum it up, soy does not lower testosterone levels.
No, it doesn't. it's something that was just created by this N=1 study.
Yeah,
And then the media kind of took the headline and just kind of rolled from them. I think we're kind of getting away from it a little bit with the advent of lots of vegan bodybuilders coming up
for
and
sure.
different fitness. Like when we look at the Tokyo Olympics that's happening right now,
Yeah.
we've got like 11 vegan athletes there. I think I counted.
Really?
Like we've got a few Aussie vegan sprinters up
Okay.
there. Like in the US soccer team, we've got Alex Morgan, I think her name is. We've got another 2 vegans in the soccer team, and they're dominant. We've got a skateboarder, we've got a fencer, we've got a BMX rider. Like there's a lot of vegan, mainly from the US, because obviously the 300 million kind of outpowers a lot of the
Uh-huh.
world.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
we've
so
got
cool
a lot of
though.
people.
Yeah, that's so cool to see that veganism is really growing. And I remember, I think, was it the last Olympics where there was that, everyone kind of talked about it, that was like in the vegan fitness community. There was the one American weightlifter, Kendrick, was it Kendrick
Yeah,
Ferris or Kevin?
Kendrick Farris, that's the
Kendrick
one.
Ferris. Yeah. He was vegan. He was the only one from the US who went to the Olympics from the US.
He's such a beast, and
Yeah, that
and
guy's huge.
he is huge.
He's huge.
Holy guacamole! Like if
Yeah.
you think you can't build muscle on a vegan
Yeah.
diet, man, you know that guy is insane. I
Seriously.
I
Yeah.
fully respect. Even Baboonium, Baboonium is actually the
Mhm.
person who made me go vegetarian
Oh,
initially.
really?
Yeah, before I was veggie for 6 months before I went vegan, and it was
Yeah.
because of Babooming. Because I'm like, I was into bodybuilding at the time,
Hmm.
because I was
Hmm.
19 or something, and I'm like,
Hmm.
weights, females, like you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I saw him, and I'm like, man, this guy is a straight up like he looks like he's eaten Wolverine. Like I don't understand what's going on here, and so I think it needs to get but like this guy can lift a car. Like what do you
Yeah.
want? Like
Yeah. If someone's gonna say that they think a vegan diet is gonna lower testosterone, look at that guy. It looks like the epitome of like masculinity all put into one like compact muscular ball.
freaking he ate like I don't understand, man. If he wasn't
Yeah.
vegan, people would say he eats babies. Like it's just
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah. Good
that
on you,
dude's a
Patrick.
beast. Yeah, seriously. That's that's great, dude. That's really cool to hear that there's so many Olympians now that are vegan actually. That's great.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pull it back a little bit to kind of like your sort of training, because I feel like we kind of glossed over it, but I know you were doing like the Goggins 4x4x48 challenge, which I
Mm,
know very little about at all.
yeah.
And you did a few other things, like you said you ran a marathon, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So what is some of your training? How did some of your training go for that? I'm just curious. You don't have to get into it too much if you don't want to, but
Let's do
yeah.
it, bro. Let's dive deep.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
with the Goggins thing, it's something I haven't talked about too much, but it was essentially the premise is you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So by the end of the 48 hours, you've done 48 miles, or for the Australians, it's about 77 kilometers.
So
So
you
it's
don't sleep?
not really, no. So essentially for me, it started at 7 p.m. So the runs were 7 p.m., 11 p.m., 3 a.m., 7 a.m., 11 a.m., repeat.
That's
So
crazy.
when I was talking at the beginning about stretching, that's something I really emphasized for this, I guess, challenge.
Uh-huh.
And when you're looking at running 4 miles, it's not a small distance, it's not a long distance, but it's enough to maybe build up lactic acid
Uh-huh.
and maybe to make you a bit heavy. So I was really trying to prepare to not be sick and to not be sore. Those were
Yeah.
my 2 biggest focuses. And when I was listening to Rich Roll, as you do,
Yeah.
and I think Adam Skolnick, the co-host of the Roll On series that they have, they were talking about the show, and Rich was talking about how to do it. And in ultra marathons and even in Ironmans, so these ultra competitive events, people don't go hard 100% of the time. You have to be very strategic.
Hmm.
So you have to run a certain amount, walk a little bit so you can run faster.
Okay.
So it's about staying, again, like we talked about, in zone 2
Hmm.
as long as possible,
So you
because
don't go
that's going to,
all out for any of those miles or anything?
no, no,
Gotcha.
it's sprinting, Very different to ultra events because you have to last a long time. And if you burn out, which a lot of people do when they try this stuff, because the mentality is so different, because you have to hold yourself back. You're excited. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
You're G'd up. You had your coffee, whatever it is, you want to go. But mentally, you have to leave your ego beside and be like, I know this guy's running faster than me, but I'm running my own race and I need to run it in a way that works for my body, which means that I need to slow down my mileage. I need to pull it right back to which I'm comfortable, making sure my heart rate and my numbers work out. And you have to really trust the numbers and not look at other people.
For the Goggins challenge, did you do that alone or were there other people with you? Oh, okay.
All by myself. So essentially my goal for nutrition, and I was talking to a few people on like Instagram and that were experienced in this kind of field. They said, try to limit your fiber intake so you don't like crap your pants and stuff like that. I didn't listen to that. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll do it. But I didn't.
Yeah.
The goal was to have a small smoothie before every run. And then to have a small meal or something physical after every run.
Okay.
That went out the window. That was the plan. Didn't work out.
Why didn't it work out?
Because you don't feel like eating at 3 a.m. Because your circadian rhythm really takes control. So after the first bit of running, I'm like, yeah, I feel good. So I ran. The goal was to run 2 kilometers, which is maybe 1.4 miles, and then walk about 100 meters. So run for 10 minutes, walk for 1 minute or 2 minutes. And that was the goal. So every leg would be finished in about 40 minutes. So I was doing it really slow just to get it done.
Okay.
And I was having coconut water the whole time just to make sure my calories were really up, because I knew if I'm running 48 miles, that's a lot of calories I'm getting through. I need to make sure I'm replenishing my salts, my electrolytes, and my water. And that in as fast a way as possible. And since then, I know there's a lot of research done on like Gatorade, Powerade, and coconut water that actually doesn't show much benefit or improvement at all compared to water. But I still like the taste of coconut water, so I'll take it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
The electrolytes help a bit, but like when we're looking at the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually improve an athlete's performance. Apparently, according to this study, they looked at about 1,000 individuals.
Okay.
But anyway,
when you're saying electrolytes, you're just referring to like sodium, magnesium, potassium. Okay.
Yeah, the things we lose in our sweat. That's what I want to get back.
And Gatorade, does it have all of that? I really don't
Coconut
know.
water or Gatorade?
You were saying Gatorade or Powerade, right? Did they?
Yeah, they claim that. They claim
it. Yeah.
They have electrolytes and things. I haven't had it in a long time. And if I have it, it's because of taste, not because of performance.
But
apparently
coconut water does though.
Coconut water has natural like potassium and magnesium that we want in our bodies. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just naturally, that's the way that the fruits.
Sure.
So I went out, did the first one, came back, I ate a pizza. Obviously beforehand, always do my glute bridges. So just doing the glute thrust, I'm stretching my legs, doing the active warm up, going out, doing the run, coming back, stretching for 5 to 10 minutes every damn time. Like I had different foods like pizza, pasta, a lot of carb centric dishes.
Okay.
I didn't have any protein shake or anything, just carbs. Eventually when it got to like 11 p.m., like you get back and it's maybe like, by the time you stretch and maybe you had a snack, it's 1 a.m. So you have to you're wet, I'm in Melbourne at this stage too. So it's cold. Like the grass I was running around an oval in circles because that was probably the safest place to run at midnight. And I did it without headphones just to get really painful, like get all the pain in.
Damn, you're crazy. I respect it. I respect it, but it's crazy.
Yeah. And like you have to, then you're showering, like you might, and then you have to like lower your heart rate a lot to sleep. Like your heart rate might be at like 100, but you need to be at like 50 to go to bed comfortably. And you're maybe
how much did you sleep
in bed. Maybe like an hour in between the 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. leg, maybe like another hour between the 3 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Okay.
Maybe 2 hours because I was really tired by the 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And that's kind of where your circadian rhythm usually sleeps anyway.
Okay.
So that was the most amount of rest I got. And then I was good the whole next, as soon as the sun rose, like I'm like, yes. And then your circadian rhythm takes over. It's like, okay, go time, let's go. I'm still busy. I'm working. I'm a freelancer, so I was doing work in the middle of all these runs as well. Like I need to focus too.
That's insane.
You just got to go. And again, just drinking my coconut water, 4 miles, just kept going, kept stretching, kept showering, just focusing on the stretching. And I was having little we call them, there's a brand called Up and Go here. It's like a little protein thing, but it's got fiber and protein, just a liquid thing, because you don't feel like eating. I
Yeah.
just could not eat. I was sick of eating. So I'm just like, oh, I just got to drink things like just coconut
Yeah.
water, Up and Go, a little
Just get something in.
just something in. Because I ended up running like three legs without any food at all, like just drink. Because you don't want to eat, like, and your body's starting to feel crap. My stomach's trying to turn already, so I'm not having the smoothest of bowel movements. And then it was honestly not too bad, but those last, 4 runs, that it's like, the 11 p.m., 3 a.m., 7 a.m. was it was 3 a.m., 7 a.m., 11 a.m. That was the last ones, and they were the worst.
It was brutal.
Because brutal. Like the 3 a.m. one, I'm like, all right, I got to get up again, because at this stage you're 40 hours without sleep, like a proper sleep, and so your body's really starting to shut down. So I get up, and this is where I coined my phraseology that I've taken with me since then, and that's just, I just got to get it done.
Yeah.
So like my partner helped a lot. So when I got back, sometimes she'd make like some toast or something, anything that I could potentially digest. So it's good to have someone supporting you, which I think is really important for any kind of endurance event, whether it's a marathon or whether it's a freaking stupid Goggins challenge or whatever it is. And so, when she's like, oh, how'd you go? I'm like, I just got it done. And I think that's a really powerful mentality. It's like, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, but I signed up for this. I signed up for the pain. I just got it done. And I think that's a really big key that I took out of it. And then eventually when I got up for that 7 a.m. run, bro, I cannot explain to you the pain I was in. It was weird because my legs were okay, but my alarm went off. I've got a Garmin, and the way that the alarm works is it freaking vibrates my whole hand. And my whole hand's vibrating. I'm in bed. I'm like, holy crap, I can't move. Like my body is just lead. And I try to move my leg. I'm like, the hell's going on? I can't.
Oh my God.
It was just heavy. Like not my legs in pain, like my chest, my arms, my neck. Like I felt like I was made of like tin. Like it was such a strange feeling that my body was really on its last legs, so to speak.
Right.
But I got out there, man. I was just limping. I was just like, come on, I've just got to, I'm hobbling on just one foot after another. And, I just got it done. And that last kind of that 11 a.m. run, I've put the reel up on Instagram, and I tried to do it as fast as possible. And it was my fastest run, and I finished. I'm just like, yes.
That was your fastest run?
That was the last one was my fastest one, because it's just
how long did it take for that one?
Maybe 30 minutes. Something like that. So maybe 30. I forget completely, but at the end of it, I burnt, because I did all the math and numbers and stuff. I ended up burning just over 8,000 calories. I did about 70,000 steps. Like it was craziness, and
that's insane,
I can't wait to do it
man.
again.
Oh my God. You really want to do it again?
Yeah. This time I'm going to try to increase my speed by 20% for all the runs.
Holy shit, dude. Mad respect, but that is crazy. I can't imagine that.
I highly recommend it to anyone who really wants a different kind of challenge. And there's different modalities you can go about it. Looking back, I think a simulation would have been a smart thing to do. Like a lot of people now, like having found people on Instagram that did it themselves as well at the same time as me, they did like a simulation where they ran 1 mile every 2 hours for 24 hours. And that kind of just prepared their body for the sleep deprivation and the consistent exercise and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think I will do it again, because it's different. It's like a different pain. Like when you're lacking sleep, when you're lacking sleep, world's just really different. It's your perspective is different. The pain you experience is different. Like sleep is, there's the pillars of health, but sleep is the foundation that holds them all up. And when you remove that, all the pillars start to get shaky. Like your appetite changes, your mood changes, the way that you see people. Maybe you got that blurry vision. Like, and I think, again, David Goggins challenge, not healthy.
Yeah.
Not healthy at all. So if you want to be healthy, don't do it. But if you want to challenge your mind and really callous your mind, and if I didn't do the David Goggins challenge, I might not have finished the marathon, because there's so much pain involved. Like the marathon that I did was 4.5 hours of running. That's a long time to be on your feet, and
just
some would
straight.
consider just straight. And you're in a lot of pain. Like you're not going to finish that feeling fantastic. Like
If
you
you had to
might have
compare the
inflammation.
two, if you had to compare the two, which one do you feel like would suck more?
I think there's a lot more training involved with the marathon. So I think its
Uh-huh.
compound suck and it shows a lot more, like, I don't know, like I wouldn't be able to run 48. I don't know if I'd be able to run 48 miles straight, but doing it in that
Right.
kind of block is it's a different game
Uh-huh.
because the sleep deprivation, I'd probably say the David Goggins challenge sucked
It
more.
sounds harder to me.
Like it's just the sleep deprivation that kills you.
Oh, for
It
sure,
really is.
man. For
Like you
sure.
could walk a marathon. Like say you can run halfway, 13
Hmm.
miles
Hmm.
of the 26-mile marathon. Like you can walk 13 miles. Whether it
Hmm.
takes you 8 hours to do, that's a marathon.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one can take that away from you. But to get up and do 4 miles in 48 hours, every 4 hours,
Yeah.
48 hours, like if you're too slow and you say do that 4 miles in 3 hours, if you like walk it,
Hmm.
you've got like a 30-minute rest before you start again.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more strategy and tactics involved. And I did that without any kind of gels. I don't know if oh no, I think I did use one energy gel, but with like the marathon, I think I used like 5 or 6 gels. So there's a lot more help I think you can use with the marathon. But I think you're not going to use a gel during the David Goggins challenge because if that thing's got caffeine, you don't want
Mm.
to risk being able to sleep less than the time you already
Oh,
have.
wow. Yeah, I
So
didn't think
if you
about
drink a
that.
coffee too late, you've only got a 1.5 hour window, maybe that you have rest time. You
Yeah.
don't want to impede that with not being able to sleep. Like, and then you've got the anxiety in your head, like, oh crap, I've got to sleep now because I've got to get up in an hour and a half. And you start like freaking out about
Hmm.
that. And I think it's a marathon is more they're both tests on your mental ability
Hmm.
and physical ability, but I think the mental servitude you have to have for the Goggins challenge is something else.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, man. I think that's so cool that you did that. But like from an outside perspective, I'm just like, damn, I'm just thinking about how crazy it is to be running and then only giving yourself like, maybe an hour or two to sleep. That seems like the hardest part for me to me, like from an outside perspective, just like that lack of sleep, like kind of like what you're saying. I mean, that's blowing my mind.
Try it, bro. Let's do it.
Dude, I don't know if I keep on this route of cardio, man, I might have to one day, but I'm already scared.
Yeah, it's good to be scared, man. We don't do a lot of things in our lifetime that scare the living crap out of us. And I think it's a good exercise to, like if I hadn't done the David Goggins challenge, what the hell are we talking about? Like maybe the marathon, like
Mhm.
you have to do things that scare you because those are things that become good stories and good lessons to other people. Like that's the things that we can pass and have these amazing conversations with our friends, our family, potentially our children or grandchildren of things
Mhm.
that we did to challenge
Yeah.
ourselves. So then inspire people around us to challenge ourselves. It doesn't have to be the freaking Goggins challenge. Like that's stupid, but just an example to just do something that scares the crap out of you. If in a bodybuilder perspective, just bench, 150 pounds, like maybe 200, like just do things that push you, not to a stupid
Mhm.
extent because you'll hurt
Yeah.
yourself, especially with that kind of weight. But
Yeah, ease into it, right?
yeah, but just the concept of doing things in a fitness perspective that scare you
Yeah.
may make you grow.
Yeah, even outside of just fitness, even just doing anything that would challenge you is going to help you grow too. So, anyone having a
100%.
problem, or I shouldn't say problem, but anyone having some sort of issue in their life that they want to overcome, just take little steps to get there, and eventually they're going to overcome that issue. And yeah, man, like that's awesome to hear. I think it's great advice. Everyone should try to remember. Just keep challenging themselves.
Love it, Ryan. Love it.
Um, so Tom, I have a little bit more time before I have to run, but I really want to hear some of your thoughts on like the environmental science stuff that you kind of mentioned.
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like that's like a whole subject we could talk for so long about, but I was wondering if you think you have anything you can kind of touch on, like the state of the environment right now, like maybe what we can do on an individual basis to try to help a little bit in our own ways.
Yep. Okay. Let's
Is that is
try
that a
to
good way to kind of like
let's do
segue
it,
into
man.
it maybe?
Let's do it in a way that is efficient with time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Um,
I feel like this is something we could really, really talk about for a while. And I
that's all
know,
right, man. There's a round two that's valid to come and
yeah,
go, man.
exactly. I know you're really passionate about this too. And like
Yeah,
I don't know a ton about it. Like I
cool.
obviously know the basics, but I'd love to hear your perspective on everything right now.
Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it comes to being plant-based, I don't want to riff on that too much because the science is black and white. Essentially, we want to be using the least amount of resources to get the most amount of, I guess, value.
Hmm.
So in this earth that we live on, there's finite resources. And I think that really needs to be understood because sometimes out of sight, out of mind is something we carry with us in different
Hmm.
levels. And understanding that this is not the case, everything is finite, especially with what we deal with, that makes you really appreciate and think about what you need in this world.
Hmm.
So, for those that are still consuming animal products, you just have to think, what did it take to produce, what resources did it take to produce this plate of food? And when it comes to growing, let's say when you have a child, it takes a lot of resources to raise them out to be 18 or 19 or 20 years old before they move out and start to use resources of their own. It's no different with raising an animal. And a lot of people will know that have pets like dogs and cats. And so when we're raising a cow, we have to do things like feed them.
Hmm.
It's not only grass that a lot of them eat, but it's grains like wheat and soy that they use. And what we have to look at and what science has looked at very in depth is how much grain does it take to feed these animals, whatever livestock they may be, chicken, cow, pig, and how much calories do we get back in the form of their meat? And then let's compare that to how much would we have to eat if we just skipped the animal and just fed us directly. And what they found in average with, say, a cow is if we feed them 19 calories of this grain, we would get 1 calorie back to us in the form of meat. And so, what that says to me in a really numerical and analytical way is we've lost 18 calories in there. And that could maybe be okay 150 years ago. But when we have things like starvation and a lot of the planet, I believe it's like about 150 million people not having access to clean water and food, we're using these resources that could otherwise solve someone else's suffering. And so when I'm looking at land use in total and I'm comparing uh, beef to, say, a lentil patty, I'm not feeding the lentils anything besides water, which is also being fed to the cow. So there's less resources to make this patty. And so we can take that to anything. And people who think they're high and mighty being plant based, which, yes, you've stepped in the right direction, but there's still solutions that you can come across. I think the biggest thing you can do is stop consuming beef and lamb. Chicken has a lot better resource intensity. So, like I mentioned, 19 calories to one for the cow, chickens are 9 to 1. So instead of losing 18 calories in the feed to plate ratio, we're only losing 8. And now, when we're looking at food waste, which is actually one of the biggest drivers of climate change,
Hmm.
and it's not talked about a lot. So, 33% of all food produced is wasted. And that is enough to feed a lot of the planet. So, 1.3 billion tons a year. That's enough to completely eradicate starvation. And so, food waste is something that we can all look to do, especially if we, regardless of our dietary patterns. Food waste is especially important if you consume animals. So, because we have this loss of calories, like at 19 to 1 that I talked about with the beef specifically, if we're firstly using all the resources to get that onto our plate and then wasting that, we have just completely ruined someone else's chance at food. Because again, you've used this finite resource, not infinite, finite resource, and wasted it. And so I think it's really important to be conscious about food waste. And you can be conscious in different ways. So I think meal prepping is a really good way to be conscious about food waste. So I know in the bodybuilding scene, meal prepping once a week, putting it in the fridge or freezer, and then warming it up, that's one way to help. And Not shopping when you're hungry. Big mistake. Don't do that because you're going to overshop, overconsume, and then you're just wasting. And there's a lot of different problems. For me, particularly once you've done all that, for me, it means when I go to the farmer's market, I pick out fruit and veg that looks a little bit bad. I pick the imperfect ones because they're the ones that are going to get wasted. And a lot of time when you go to your supermarkets, like your Walmarts or whatever it is, they've already wasted the food because they've thrown out food that they think won't look good to the consumer. And so I don't want to pin all the blame on consumers. This is a huge change that needs to happen within a government and a company and a business level. We can, if you're in a position to change that, we can look to countries like France that has made it illegal for supermarkets to throw out edible foods. And you get slapped with a huge fine if they found out that you do throw out food. And the biggest food waste is actually fruit and veg. So 45% of all fruit and veg produced is gone. It's only 20% to 30% when it comes to meat. So it's very, very important. If food waste, I'm just going to continue with the knowledge. I don't want to bore people too much. I'm trying to talk nice and slow because
no, this is great. This is great.
It's very important. If food waste was a country, a physical country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases in total across the board globally. That is a humongous impact on climate change. And climate change isn't this fairy tale. So obviously I think people have disassociated climate change. It's this sexy thing. Oh, I'm climate friendly or whatever it is. But it's here. We see it every day. We don't see it. Actually, we're really privileged. I live in Australia. We actually see a bit. Our farmers get affected quite a bit. In the US, maybe not so much. Guess who's copping it? Nepal. These countries in like Southeast Asia, Central Africa, because they have flooding and droughts that actually remove all their crops. So these farmers that are focused on subsistence farming meaning they farm for their family, they farm to live, not to sell, and they just sell whatever the excess they have. They can't get food anymore because the poorest nations in the world are getting affected the worst because we have the resources in westernized countries to, I guess, modify our effect. So if we don't have enough water, we buy water or we manufacture water. We take it from dam because we've got the wealth to do that. They don't. So these countries are physically dying. People are physically dying and committing suicide because they don't have the resources to feed their family. And so we need to stop thinking about climate change as this fairy tale, this thing that might happen. It is happening. So things like, and I don't want to finish on doom and gloom, so I'm sorry, but things like food waste is incredibly important. That's why. Things like incorporating more plants to your meals, and that could be meatless Mondays. That could be then turn to meatless Tuesdays. That could be every time you choose plants, you're part of the solution. Not only for the planet, but for your body. See how you feel. We know that it's more anti-inflammatory. I won't go on the health side of things because the environment's generally where I shine. But you can be part of the solution. And we can as consumers, but it's not all on us. So I don't want anyone to wear the brunt. It's governments too. It's the companies too, businesses. They have a role and a responsibility. So if you're in a position to vote, especially for parties that have a vested interest in saving the environment. That's powerful. That's what you want in life. I think people think that they don't have the power, but we do. We do have the power. And that's kind of what I wanted to finish on. And food is a huge driver. It's not the biggest driver. Energy, I believe it's like 70%. So, transport, powering buildings, manufacturing steel and iron. This is a lot. Agriculture just accounts for 17% of global greenhouse gases. But it's it's a low-hanging fruit. We can easily change our dietary patterns. 42% of Australia is flexitarian. 42%. That's about 12 million people that, when given an option, could potentially choose a plant. And I don't know what the stats are for other places like the US, but I'm thinking it's a similar trend because the mentality between the two countries, when it comes to food, it's very similar, not the same, not too different. But I think people are leaning that way. And the fact is that because of the way that we're leaning towards, our greenhouse gas emissions have a chance to reduce and sequester. And because of that, we're going to deforest lands less. We're going to fund farmers that are producing things like lentils and fruits and veggies, things that are more profitable for them, for their families. It's not just about us, but we're going to we have I guess an opportunity to help people that actually grow the food, the important people. But yeah, that's my message. It's not all doom and gloom, and we do have a lot of power, which is awesome. And when you run the numbers, it is possible for us to reverse climate change, but it requires us to admit that we're not doing a fantastic job. We're in a pretty crap position, but the planet will be okay. It will survive. We, on the other hand, might not. So that's my message to do better, people. Come on, we got this.
Dude, yeah, that was very well said. I loved it. That was brilliant.
What a monologue. Sorry, bro. I just kind of went
No.
on a little rant.
No. That was so great. I want to chop that out and make it its own thing because I loved it so much. There's so much to unpack there, I feel like. I guess the first thing I think of is that I really like that you're kind of optimistic in a way, which I think is great because a lot of people who kind of know the state of the world and I think a lot of us tend to kind of gear towards the negative aspects and really focus in on that because it's easy to when you really know what's going on. But also, if you kind of look at a lot of the facts that you kind of you pointed out, plant-based options are becoming such a big thing globally. Like even just here in New York City alone, like I can go to any place, almost any restaurant, and grab like a plant-based option. Like they don't market it at all, but there's almost always like a Beyond Burger or like a black bean burger or like whatever. There's like some sort of like vegan friendly alternative to a popular meat-based option or something. So that's great. I mean, yeah, like your average person is going for those plant-based options more, which is really making a difference because, at least in my opinion, I think you'll probably agree with this. If more people just go that flexitarian route, like you said, and will just choose the plant-based option more, maybe they're not like fully plant-based or fully vegan or whatever. That's okay because there's still more people, in a coming together worldwide that are choosing the plant-based option. And that's doing more than maybe just one person who's 100% plant-based. If you're looking at it purely from a climate change perspective, is that how you feel kind of?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just about how I feel. That's how the numbers work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't have to be very emotional about it. And I have this argument with vegans quite a bit, and I get it because it's quite emotional. But if we look at 80% of the planet being 80% plant-based, it's going to be better than 20% of the planet being 100 plant-based.
Yeah.
Even if you're ethical for the animals, whether you're ethical for the environment, it doesn't matter.
Definitely.
Every time, that's why I've shifted, changing. Every time you choose plants, you're part of the solution.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And that's something that I also feel too, that I can, it's a little controversial for some people, like a little bit touchy. Especially like I'm definitely vegan for like moral purposes, like for the animals first and foremost, but I still always say that more people choosing the plant-based option is still going to be like more beneficial than just like one vegan out of, 100 or whatever number you want to say. I mean, honestly, I think people who are fully vegan is only like in the United States, I think it's like 1%, maybe 1.5% of the population here or something. If that.
The best estimate of the globe is 1.4%, but let's round it up for 2% to be conservative.
Yeah.
But 2% is a small amount. So
yeah,
the more flexitarians, the better at this stage.
exactly. And you said like did you say in Australia like 45% is flexitarian roughly?
Dude, yeah, we've got a lot. I think the latest stat from statistica.org was something like 5 to 10% vegan, 5 to 10%
wow.
veggie, and 42% flexitarian. So
Okay.
that shocked me a lot because, I mean, there is a lot of vegans, but I didn't, like 5% is a huge number.
Yeah, that's huge compared to the rest of the world for sure. I looked this up recently, and Yeah, I didn't know Australia was that high, but I was looking at the United States being like a half a percentage, 1%. I was like, that sounds kind of right.
That's a lot though. Of 300 million, I don't have the stats, but that's like 300,000 or something. Like that's a lot of
It's
people.
still, I mean, it's nothing to shake a stick at, but also, like you said, it's kind of like the flexitarians that are making up the bulk of it. And that I appreciate that a lot. I'm not gonna go bash, talk shit and stuff just because, as people are trying to choose the more ethical option or the more, environmentally friendly option more often, then it's still making a huge change. So I think that's still great.
I love that you think that way. I think that's really powerful and something that I think that perspective alone will allow you to think less doom and gloom, which I think
Yeah.
is a trap that I fall into sometimes as well. And I think a lot of people is fair enough to fall into. That perspective really
Mhm.
counters that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to pop onto, wherever you get your news or whatever, and go through the articles and just be like, oh, this is a ton of terrible news. And you have to think about it because like the media and like the studies getting published and stuff, they kind of, the media obviously has an agenda to get more views. The studies being published are being published by people, writing these articles about it who also have an agenda. So yeah.
Stop watching the news, guys. Seriously, it's so bad. It's run by figures that have a vested interest in controlling the way that I don't want to get no, but this in Australia, in the state that I live in, I think it's something like 95% of all print media is owned by one person and one
Wow.
corporation. So I'm not saying don't watch the news, but pick your news sources wisely, and make sure it's an unbiased agenda where you're getting your news sources, and don't take it at face value. Look into things, because if you're I'm saying more and more, especially Sky News, they're very guilty of this. You, you're not allowed to give your opinion on the news, and that is what Sky News does. So if you watch Sky News in particular, which I know is pretty big in America, be very wary. And I won't say much more than that, but I think it's important to be very skeptical of what's going on in the news, because everyone's trying to everyone's trying to be happy, but some people, they have different ideas of happiness. And when your paycheck relies on a certain product being sold or a certain mentality to be had, I think, especially like you said, they're trying to get clicks. I think it's smart to be skeptical.
Yeah. That's yeah, everyone needs to hear that more often because I think a lot of people are accepting things at face value a little too much and not really questioning where the source is or like what the agenda is or whatever. And yeah, there's a lot of political issues going on in the world right now. But like you said, like just look into things a little bit more.
So simple.
Yeah. All right, Tom. That I absolutely loved everything you just said about the environment. That was honestly like I didn't know a lot of that, and I think that was just so great to hear. You're very, very well spoken, very well said. So I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate hearing that. But I also don't want to keep you too much longer. I know it's just you're just starting your day over there. So yeah, man, thank you so much. Is there any closing words or anything you want to say that we didn't really get to touch on or anything?
Look, I think we touched on a lot. I think when it comes to fitness, just I would definitely implore people to try add a little bit more cardio, even like versatility. So if you do a lot of weight training, add in some calisthenics. If you do a
Mhm.
lot of cardio, it's very important on the other way to add resistance training, because you need your muscles to be big and strong to be able to last. Especially if you're doing bouts of 4, 5, 6, and beyond hours of exercise. So, I mean, we talked about cardio being important for people that do resistance training, but the other way is just as important, if not more. So if you just do cardio, you need to get into the gym and do some resistance. I think that's very important. If people want to learn more about the environment, please do. There's lots of really amazing sources. If you listen to podcasts, there's lots of amazing podcasts about there. If you read the science, and if you don't know how to read the science, which is it's something I'm still learning,
Mhm.
and I spend hours a day sometimes just looking at the science to make sure I'm up to date. Find pages on Instagram if you're on Instagram. Find pages on Facebook if you're on Facebook, that share these kinds of things. If you're on YouTube and you want to find out things about nutrition, like follow people like Mike the Vegan. If you're
Mhm.
into fitness, follow people that love fitness and share the right advice. And you might have to sift through people because you don't understand their perspective, but find people that relate to you. If you want to learn more about the environment, climate change, I'll plug myself, the plant paradigm. Like I share science in the most colloquial, simplistic way I can without kind of dumbing it down to not make sense anymore. So just find people that you resonate with for whatever you want to learn. So if it's about fitness, like following Ryan, you post some good stuff. It's just finding people you relate to make sure your information that you're consuming is correct, so you don't screw yourself over in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Very well said, man. And also going back to what you mentioned earlier about pushing yourself to, challenge yourself. That was a very good point that you said about, facing your fears and everything. And I think you can tie that into some of the other things you kind of just mentioned. So yeah, man, that was definitely great. And where can people find you on social media? I know you mentioned your podcast, The Plant Paradigm. Where else?
Yeah, so a lot of all my podcast episodes get posted on YouTube. So that's also The Plant Paradigm. But on Instagram, it's where I post a lot of my stuff. So it'll be I post fitness stuff every now and again, but it's mainly just trying to raise awareness about like the different science, things like that. Talking about food waste, environment, a lot of times actually nutrition now, just because I think nutrition's a lot of gray areas and people are really confused. So I'm just trying to provide information in a very unbiased way. And everything I say in terms of studies, I reference. So every single time I give a statistic or a percentage or a number, you will find a source. So you know that I'm not talking crap and you can go look at it yourself.
I love that.
Yeah, that's all at plant.paradigm on Instagram. And I'm on all the places like Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, but it's mainly Instagram that I'm at.
Okay, awesome, man. Yeah, I love so much that you post all the studies to talk about. That's great. Okay, man. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, amazing conversation. You have a ton of great info, and it was a pleasure having you on, man.
Dude, I really appreciate your time in allowing me to word vomit sometimes. And the conversation was great. No, I really enjoyed it. I liked how, the first 30 minutes was so natural, and I love meeting people who you just kind of riff on, you just kind of build slowly. And it's awesome to see other people in the world that are passionate about, well, we didn't even touch on like the ethics and the morality, but you're obviously vegan for the animals first and foremost. And I love that, especially being a guy.
Yeah.
And I know we have certain barriers that females maybe don't understand when it comes to the issues of masculinity that we face in terms of criticisms from other people. So I appreciate that you're out there being ripped and swole and having a sick body while also not consuming animal products. So I think that's a really good form of effective activism you do naturally. So that's awesome, man. And thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's so nice of you. All right, great chat, dude. I will catch you next time, I guess.
Sounds good, legend.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Aethix Approach podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, it would mean a ton if you gave the podcast a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Stitcher, Player FM, Pinecast, or any other service you're listening to, and subscribe to the Aethix Fitness YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page. Feel free to check out the articles, training and nutrition programs, and merch on aethixfitness.com. And if you like what I'm making, dropping a like, commenting, and sharing would really, really help me out. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.